I died on that operating table, my kidney removed to save my golden child sister Mia while my so-called parents watched without tears. They used me for my organs, never knowing I would be reborn with perfect memory of their betrayal. Now, as they welcome their long-lost son home, I enter their mansion with one purpose: methodical destruction of the family that sacrificed me. Their perfect world will crumble to dust beneath the vengeance of the son they killed once before. I flatlined at 6:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. My kidney was already being removed when the monitor showed my heart had stopped. Through dimming consciousness, I heard my mother's voice oddly flat. At least it wasn't for nothing. They needed my kidney for Mia, their perfect daughter. My biological parents hadn't raised me, hadn't loved me, hadn't even known me until my blood type matched their precious girl. They found me, claimed me, killed me. Then I woke up gasping in my orphanage bed. The calendar on the wall read June 15th, the exact day the Vernons first came for me in my previous life. My hands flew to my abdomen, expecting surgical scars, but found only smooth skin. I didn't understand then what had happened. Rebirth? Second chance? It didn't matter. I knew what was coming. 2 hours later, Mrs. Kellner, the orphanage director, called me to her office. "Leo, something wonderful has happened." I knew before she spoke another word. The Vernons sat in her shabby office looking out of place in their designer clothes. Robert Vernon, tall with silver-streaked dark hair. Elizabeth Vernon, blonde and elegant. Their practiced expressions of hope and joy made my stomach twist. "These people believe they might be your biological parents," Mrs. Kellner said. Robert Vernon stepped forward. "There was a mix-up at the hospital when you were born, son. We've spent years searching for you." Lies, I remembered everything now. They'd known about me for years, but only came when Mia's kidneys started failing. I forced my face into an expression of shock and gratitude. Looking back, it was my first act of revenge, making them believe I was exactly what they needed. Naive, grateful boy eager to please his newfound family. "Really? You're my parents?" I whispered, voice cracking perfectly. Elizabeth Vernon embraced me, her expensive perfume suffocating. "We've found you at last." I endured their touch, their false warmth. I memorized their scent, their mannerisms. Knowledge is power, and I would know everything about them before I was done. The Vernons' mansion sprawled across manicured grounds in the city's wealthiest neighborhood. 20 rooms of opulence built on corruption and cruelty. This was the life that should have been mine. A line of staff greeted us. Housekeeper, chef, gardener, driver. I noted each face, each name. Allies or obstacles I would determine later. Then came Mia, descending the grand staircase like a princess, 17, like me, with our father's dark hair and our mother's delicate features, beautiful, poised, and utterly poisonous. "My brother," she said, embracing me. Her fingers dug slightly into my back. A warning, a claim of ownership. I didn't know it then, but even in this life she already viewed me as spare parts. My room was larger than the entire orphanage dormitory. Private, bathroom, walk-in closet filled with new clothes, king-sized bed with satin sheets, a prison disguised as paradise. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I relived my death in vivid flashes. The hospital room, the anesthesia, the oxygen mask, the last faces I saw. Doctors focused on salvaging my organs, not saving my life. I startled awake at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat. I would not die for them again. The next morning I began mapping the house, memorizing routines. Robert Vernon left for his office at 7:30 a.m. sharp. Elizabeth attended charity committees and spa appointments. Mia had private tutors rather than attending school. I played the overwhelmed, grateful son, wide-eyed at their generosity, hesitant to touch expensive things, amazed by simple luxuries. "You'll adjust quickly," Elizabeth assured me over breakfast. "After all, this is where you belong." Looking back, I marvel at my self-control. I smiled and thanked her while plotting her destruction. I made friends with the staff. Maria, the housekeeper, warmed to me quickly. Such a polite boy, she told Elizabeth. Not spoiled like... She caught herself. Not spoiled like Mia. The household knew the truth about their perfect daughter. I found listening spots throughout the house, behind the living room curtains, the service corridor by Robert's study, the kitchen pantry near the staff dining area. Information accumulated, Robert's pharmaceutical connections, Elizabeth's drinking habit, Mia's secret hospitalizations. 1 week after my arrival, I discovered the first concrete evidence. In Robert's study, a file folder labeled Contingency Plan. Inside, my orphanage records, medical history, blood type. The date on the earliest document, 3 years ago. They'd known about me long before they claimed. They'd monitored me from afar, keeping me in reserve until Mia needed me. I photographed every page with the phone they'd given me, then replaced. Everything exactly as I'd found it. Evidence for later. Ammunition for the war ahead. The first family dinner party came 2 weeks after my arrival. 40 guests, business partners, social connections, potential allies in my revenge. I played my role perfectly. Shy, grateful, overwhelmed by good fortune. Such a miracle finding your son after all these years, gushed a woman dripping in diamonds. We never gave up hope, Elizabeth said, squeezing my shoulder possessively. I didn't know then how useful these connections would be in bringing down the Vernons. Every person in that room would eventually play a part in their destruction. That night, Mia cornered me in the hallway. Alone, her mask slipped. Don't get too comfortable, she whispered. You're not really one of us. If only she knew how right she was. I was not one of them. I was their reckoning. The next day, Elizabeth scheduled my routine physical. The doctor's name sent ice through my veins. Dr. Whitman, the same man who had assessed my organ compatibility before my death. Just standard tests, Elizabeth assured me. Nothing to worry about. I smiled and nodded. I worried about nothing. They should have worried about everything. I set up my first surveillance device that night, a small recorder hidden in Mia's room. By morning, I had what I needed. Mia on the phone with a friend, laughing about her backup plan finally arriving. They'd literally cut him open if I asked, she boasted. I felt nothing hearing this. No pain, no anger, just cold, perfect clarity. They had harvested me once. Now I would harvest everything from them, their reputation, their wealth, their family. Their perfect world would crumble to dust. The Vernons thought they'd found a grateful, malleable son. Instead, they'd welcomed their destruction through the front door. I mastered the art of being invisible while seen. Grateful smiles, hesitant questions, eyes cast down at appropriate moments. The perfect transplant donor taking shape. Leo's adjusting wonderfully, Elizabeth told her friends over brunch. I refilled their mimosa glasses, playing the helpful son. You must be so thrilled to have your family complete, said a woman in pearls. Complete, as if I was the missing piece, rather than a replacement part. What they couldn't see was the network I was building. Every servant, every gardener, every driver became my unwitting informant. Small kindnesses earned their trust, remembering names, asking about their children, thanking them for their work. Maria, the housekeeper, became my most valuable ally. 20 years with the Vernons had given her access to their secrets. Miss Mia's been in the hospital 6 times this year, she confided while teaching me to fold napkins properly. They always say it's for tests, but she comes back looking terrible. I didn't know it then, but Maria's information would become crucial evidence in my case against the Vernons. I mapped their social connections like a general surveying a battlefield. Robert's business partners, Elizabeth's charity board members, Mia's private tutors, and few friends. Each relationship a potential pressure point. The household staff whispered other secrets. The gardener, Pablo, mentioned Robert's late-night meetings with pharmaceutical executives in the pool house. The cook, Danielle, spoke of Elizabeth's excessive drinking when her husband traveled. She breaks down sometimes, Danielle said. Talks about sacrifices no mother should make. I wondered if she meant the sacrifice of her son. My surveillance expanded. Small recording devices purchased with the allowance they gave me, placed strategically throughout the house, behind books in Robert's study, under Mia's vanity, inside, the living room clock. The recordings proved invaluable. Robert arguing with someone about accelerating the timeline, Elizabeth sobbing about no other options for Mia, and Mia herself, consistently cruel when speaking about me to her friends. He's like this puppy following everyone around, she said on one recording, totally clueless about why they really wanted him back. Looking back, her contempt made my work easier. Any flicker of hesitation died when I heard her speak. My greatest discovery came 3 weeks after my arrival. Robert left for a business dinner, forgetting to lock his study. I had 30 minutes at most. Inside his desk drawer, buried beneath insurance policies, I found a folder labeled Project Revival. Inside, correspondence with TransLife Pharmaceuticals dating back 5 years. My name appeared in documents from 3 years ago. They'd identified me as a potential donor long before claiming me as their son. More damning still, medical evaluations of Mia showing her kidney function had been declining for years. Notes about procurement options and familial consent laws. They'd been planning my death long before I entered their home. I photographed everything, replaced it exactly, and left the study untouched. Evidence accumulated in my secret email account, the weapon taking shape. The next day, Elizabeth scheduled my comprehensive physical with Dr. Whitman. I recognized his office immediately. The same blue walls, the same diplomas, the same man who had evaluated my organ compatibility before. Let's check those kidneys, he said casually, pressing against my abdomen. I tensed involuntarily. He noticed. Just routine, he assured me, with a practiced smile. Nothing to worry about. The blood work was extensive. I counted 8 vials. As we left, I overheard Dr. Whitman telling Elizabeth he would expedite the compatibility analysis. In the car, Elizabeth squeezed my hand. You're such a blessing to our family, Leo. I could almost hear the unspoken addition. More than you. No. That night, Mia suffered what they called a spell. Pale and weak, she collapsed during dinner. The private ambulance arrived discreetly. No sirens. No neighbors witnessing the family crisis. I wasn't allowed to accompany them to the hospital. Left alone, I seized the opportunity to access Elizabeth's personal laptop. Her password was Mia's birthday. The emails confirmed everything. Correspondence with transplant specialists. Insurance inquiries about living donor coverage. Messages to their lawyer about parental consent for minor medical procedures. I found something unexpected, too. Elizabeth's secret correspondence with a reporter who'd been investigating TransLife Pharmaceuticals. Elizabeth had provided information, then abruptly stopped responding 6 months ago, around when Mia's condition worsened. I didn't understand then how valuable this connection would become. The reporter's email address went into my growing arsenal. The Vernons returned with Mia at dawn. She looked frail, moving slowly with Elizabeth's support. Robert's expression was grim. Dr. Whitman called, Elizabeth told me later. Your test results look excellent. The pride in her voice turned my stomach. Excellent for what purpose? That afternoon I befriended Martin, their driver. A father of 3 with a sick wife. He needed this job desperately. Mr. Vernon has me. Drive him to strange meetings sometimes, Martin confided. Office buildings with no signs, warehouses after midnight. I asked innocent questions. Martin provided routes, names, times, information I filed away for future use. The next week brought the Vernon's annual charity gala benefiting kidney research. The irony wasn't lost on me. A fundraiser for the very disease they planned to sacrifice me to cure. Leo will help with the presentation, Elizabeth announced. It's important he participates in family traditions. Family traditions, like harvesting, organs from one child to save another. I trained on their presentation equipment, learning the system thoroughly. volunteered to manage the slide transitions and videos. No one questioned my eagerness to help. The gala arrived. 200 guests in evening wear, champagne flowing, checkbooks open. I stood quietly at the audiovisual station while the Vernons worked the room. Robert took the stage, Elizabeth and Mia beside him. Tonight we celebrate not only this worthy cause but our family's miracle. Our son returned to us at last. Spotlights found me. Applause erupted. I smiled modestly. The perfect supporting player in their family drama. Then came their presentation. As Robert spoke about family values and sacrifices for those we love, I prepared my first public strike. When he gestured for the promotional video, I played a different file. Just 15 seconds of Mia's recorded conversation about her backup plan, her laughing voice filling the ballroom. They'd literally cut him open if I asked. Gasps from the audience. Robert froze mid-sentence. Elizabeth's face drained of color. I frantically pressed buttons, appearing to fix a technical error. The correct video played. I looked mortified, apologetic. Computer glitch, I stammered. So sorry. The gala continued, but the damage was done. Whispers circulated, glances darted between the Vernons and me. That night, the family facade cracked. Robert shouted at Elizabeth behind closed doors about controlling that girl and jeopardizing everything. Later, Mia stormed into my room. I know you did that on purpose, she hissed. Don't play innocent with me. I looked confused, frightened. It was an accident, I swear. She didn't believe me, she shouldn't have. The first crack in their perfect family image had appeared. Looking back, it was a small strike, but it set everything in motion. The Vernons would never know peace in their home again. Their perfect world had begun to crumble to dust. The aftermath of the gala provided new opportunities. Whispers followed the Vernons at social events. Friends asked pointed questions about Mia's health. Business associates studied Robert more carefully during meetings. I remained the perfect son. Apologetic about the technical error. Concerned about Mia's increasingly frequent spells. Supportive of Elizabeth's excessive wine consumption. Always refilling her glass while appearing concerned. The garden party 2 weeks after the gala marked my next strategic strike. The guest list included Henry Blackwell, CEO of TransLife Pharmaceuticals. The company partnered with Vernon Industries in questionable medical trials. I volunteered as a server, carrying trays of champagne. My unassuming presence made me invisible to their important conversations. Looking back, the wealthy truly believed servants couldn't hear them. I approached Blackwell with a champagne tray, deliberately tripping. The golden liquid splashed across his expensive suit. I'm so sorry, sir, I stammered, dabbing at his jacket. Please, let me help you clean up inside. I led him to a private bathroom, apologizing profusely. Once alone, my demeanor shifted slightly. Mr. Blackwell, I believe you know my father well. He mentioned your special arrangement with TransLife's experimental transplant program. The color drained from his face. What did you say? I maintained wide-eyed innocence. The arrangement for Mia's treatment? He said it was revolutionary but needed to remain private for now. Blackwell's expression hardened. Young man, I don't know what you think you heard, but there is no experimental program. I blinked in apparent confusion. But the files in his study mentioned Phase 3 trials and undocumented donors. The CEO excused himself abruptly. 10 minutes later, he left the party without speaking to Robert. I didn't know it then, but I'd planted a seed of panic that would sprout into corporate paranoia. That evening, Robert received an urgent call from Blackwell. He locked himself in his study, but my recording device captured everything. We need to contain this situation immediately, Robert insisted. My son misunderstood something he overheard. Your son knows specific details about unapproved trials, Blackwell responded. This could trigger a federal investigation. I'll handle him, Robert promised. Nothing will threaten our arrangement. The next day, Robert took me fishing. Just the two of us at the private lake on their estate. A father-son bonding experience. or so he claimed. "Leo, I want to discuss something important," he said as we sat in the boat. "Family loyalty." His tone was casual, but his eyes were calculating. I pretended not to notice. "In this family, we protect each other," he continued. "Sometimes that means keeping family matters private." I nodded earnestly. "Of course, I understand." "Have you been in my study recently?" The question hung between us. I looked confused, then embarrassed. "I went in looking for a book last week. I'm sorry if that wasn't allowed." Robert studied me. "Did you see any documents on my desk?" I hesitated, as if trying to remember. "There were some papers. I didn't read them. Was that private?" My apparent innocence seemed to reassure him. He believed he was dealing with a naive orphan, not someone who remembered dying on his operating table. "Just business matters," he said finally. "Nothing for you to worry about." I nodded, then asked the question I knew would unsettle him. "Is Mia going to be okay? She seems sicker lately." His grip tightened on his fishing rod. "Mia has medical challenges, but we'll take care of her. That's what families do." What he meant was, that's what I would do for her. The fishing trip confirmed my suspicions. They were accelerating their timeline. I needed to work faster. That night, I used Elizabeth's laptop again while she was sedated with wine and sleeping pills. I found emails between her and Dr. Whitman discussing preliminary compatibility results and optimal extraction timing. My fate was being scheduled like a delivery. I forwarded these emails to my secret account, then did something bolder. Using Elizabeth's email, I sent a message to the investigative reporter she'd previously contacted. New evidence regarding TransLife's illegal trials. Original informant wishes to reconnect discreetly. I didn't expect what happened next. Within hours, the reporter replied with a phone number and a single line. This connection could save lives. Elizabeth never saw this exchange. I deleted it from her account. But I saved the reporter's contact information. Another weapon in my arsenal. Martin, the driver, provided my next opportunity. He mentioned driving Robert to a warehouse meeting with men who looked like they worked on the docks, not in pharmaceuticals. I asked innocent questions. Martin provided crucial details. They talked about shipping schedules and customs clearance. One man mentioned special medical cargo that bypasses inspection. I recorded our conversation, appearing merely curious about Martin's job. In reality, I was documenting a smuggling operation. The next day, I made an innocent mistake. While helping Elizabeth organize charity files, I mentioned how interesting Martin's job must be, driving father to those warehouse meetings about medical shipments. Elizabeth froze. "What warehouse meetings?" I backpedaled, appearing confused. "The ones at night? With the shipping men? I thought you knew." Her face paled. Another seed planted. The Vernon's united front began cracking from within. That evening, I overheard Elizabeth confronting Robert. "You promised those shipments stopped," she hissed. "The board nearly discovered the last one." "We need specialized equipment for Mia," he replied. "Equipment that isn't FDA approved." "And if we're caught? What happens to her then?" Their argument escalated. I recorded everything. The following week brought their annual business dinner. Executives from Vernon Industries and partner companies gathered at the mansion. I helped prepare guest rooms for those staying overnight. In the room assigned to James Wheeler, Vernon Industries CFO, I planted a flash drive. Labeled simply TransLife Project, it contained select documents from Robert's files. Nothing that implicated me, but enough to raise serious questions about the company's activities. I knew in Wheeler's position, curiosity would overcome caution. The dinner proceeded smoothly. I served drinks, played piano during dessert, excused myself appropriately when business discussions began. I didn't know it then, but Wheeler found the drive that night. By morning, the executive dynamics had subtly shifted. Glances between board members. Whispered conversations when Robert stepped away. Robert sensed something was wrong but couldn't identify the source. His frustration manifested in sharp comments to Elizabeth and coldness toward Mia, whose health was visibly declining. Mia's deterioration worked in my favor. Her weakness meant more hospital visits, more desperate measures, more mistakes by the Vernons. During her latest hospitalization, I visited with flowers, the perfect supportive brother. Dr. Whitman was reviewing her chart when I arrived. "Leo," he said warmly, "just the person I wanted to see. We should schedule your follow-up. Soon?" I smiled innocently. "Follow-up? To complete your compatibility assessment." He caught himself. "I mean your routine physical." The slip was deliberate. He wanted me to know what was coming. Perhaps he thought fear would make me compliant. "Of course," I agreed pleasantly. "Whatever helps Mia." After he left, Mia regarded me from her hospital bed. For once, her mask slipped enough to show fear. "You know, don't you?" she whispered. I tilted my head. "Know what?" "What they need from you. What I need." I sat beside her, arranging my features into appropriate brotherly concern. "You're sick, I want to help." Her laugh was bitter. "So noble. Don't pretend you have a choice." For a moment I considered telling her the truth, that I remembered dying for her once, that I wouldn't do it again, that her entire family was already crumbling under my careful pressure. Instead, I squeezed her hand. "We're family. That's what matters." The lie satisfied her. She believed she still had power over me. Looking back, her confidence in my compliance made my revenge sweeter. The Vernons still thought they controlled the narrative. They didn't realize I was writing their ending. That night, I sent my first anonymous email to the regulatory authorities, a concerned employee reporting suspicious activities at Vernon Industries involving unapproved medical trials and organ transplantation irregularities. I included just enough documentation to trigger preliminary inquiries, not enough to conclude the investigation quickly. I wanted the Vernons to feel the noose tightening slowly. The first official letter arrived 3 days later. Robert's face darkened as he read it at breakfast. Without explanation, he canceled his meetings and locked himself in his study. The house grew tense. Elizabeth drank earlier each day. Mia returned from the hospital frailer than before, and I, the perfect son, moved invisibly among them, recording their panic, documenting their mistakes, accelerating their downfall. Their perfect world was crumbling to dust, just as I had promised, and they still didn't know who was destroying them. The regulatory inquiry ignited a slow-burning fuse. Robert spent hours with company lawyers. Elizabeth canceled social engagements. Household staff whispered about financial troubles. They maintained a facade of normalcy. I maintained my facade of ignorance. "Just a routine audit," Robert explained, at dinner. "Nothing to worry about." His smile didn't reach his eyes. Mine did. I accelerated my assault on multiple fronts. Using the reporter's contact information, I arranged a meeting. Sarah Chen, investigative journalist for the Metropolitan Times, specialized in medical ethics violations. We met at a public library while I was supposedly at SAT prep classes. I brought copies of select documents, careful to include nothing that would implicate me directly. "These came from Elizabeth Vernon initially," I explained. "She became too frightened to continue. I'm honoring her original intentions." Looking back, using Elizabeth as my supposed source was my most elegant move. Chen studied the documents, eyes widening. "This is explosive. Trans-Life partnering with Vernon Industries to circumvent donor consent laws, experimental treatments, without FDA approval." I appeared nervous. "Will you need to name your source?" "Not if these documents can be independently verified." She tapped the folder. "And some of these have official letterheads that can be authenticated." "Perfect. The investigation would proceed without my involvement becoming known." "There's more," I said hesitantly. "Mia Vernon's illness. The company's experimental treatment program seems designed specifically for her case." Chen's reporter instincts sharpened. Are you suggesting Vernon Industries' entire medical division exists to save the CEO's daughter? I shrugged. The timeline matches, and there's a recent development. The Vernons discovered they have a biological son who was switched at birth. Perfect donor match. I watched comprehension dawn in her eyes. You? I neither confirmed nor denied it. My silence was answer enough. 3 days later, Chen published her first article. No names, just allegations of a prominent medical technology company involved in ethically questionable transplant practices and potential exploitation of familial donors. Industry insiders would recognize the target. The Vernons certainly did. Robert threw the newspaper across the breakfast table. Who's talking to the press, Wheeler, Blackwell? Elizabeth's hands trembled around her coffee cup. Could it be that reporter who contacted me last year? You told me you shut her down, Robert snapped. I did, Elizabeth insisted. I watched their trust in each other fracture further. Simultaneously, I executed my next phase, undermining Mia's health management. During my daily bonding time with my sister, I noticed her medication routine. She took immunosuppressants and kidney function stabilizers. I didn't tamper with her pills directly. Too obvious. Instead, I researched interactions, common foods and supplements that reduced medication effectiveness. I arranged for grapefruit juice to appear regularly at breakfast, claiming it was my favorite. Added starfruit to the fruit salad, suggested turmeric as a health supplement. I read it helps with inflammation, I told Elizabeth innocently. None of these would cause immediate harm. But over weeks they would render her medication less effective, accelerating her kidney deterioration. Forcing the Vernon's hand. I didn't know it then, but I was recreating the timeline of my previous life, only this time I controlled it. Meanwhile, Vernon Industries stock began a subtle decline. Nothing dramatic, just consistent downward pressure. The preliminary investigation made investors nervous. Robert grew increasingly erratic. Late nights at the office, shouting matches with board members over the phone, drinking scotch before noon. Elizabeth drifted between anxiety and resignation. She spent hours in Mia's room whispering reassurances. Her wine consumption doubled. One evening she sought me out in the library. Her eyes were red, her movements unsteady. You're such a good boy, Leo, she slurred. So helpful. Not like Mia was at your age. I set my book aside. Was Mia difficult? Elizabeth laughed bitterly. Difficult? She was impossible. Nothing was ever enough. Robert spoiled her rotten from the day we got her. I tilted my head. Got her? A flash of panic crossed Elizabeth's face. She backtracked. From the day she was born, I mean. You know what I meant. But I had caught it. Another piece of their secret. The word got suggested acquisition, not birth. I pressed gently. It must have been hard, raising Mia alone while searching for me. Elizabeth's intoxication loosened her tongue. We didn't know about you at first. The hospital never told us about the switch. We only discovered it when Mia needed genetic testing for her condition. Another lie exposed. They had explicitly told me they'd searched for years after discovering the hospital mix-up. I recorded our conversation using my phone hidden in my pocket, more evidence accumulating. The following week, Mia's condition deteriorated sharply. She collapsed during breakfast, vomiting blood. The private ambulance arrived within minutes. This time, both Robert and Elizabeth accompanied her to the hospital. Alone in the house, I moved quickly. I accessed Robert's home office computer. Using the password I'd watched him enter numerous times, his emergency files were encrypted, but his email wasn't. I found what I needed: correspondence with an overseas clinic specializing in privately arranged transplantation procedures, discussions about bypassing standard protocols for a time-sensitive case. They were arranging my operation outside regulatory oversight. I forwarded these emails to my secure account, then to Sarah Chen. The noose tightened further. When the Vernons returned, Mia was hospitalized indefinitely. Her kidney function had dropped to critical levels. Dialysis would sustain her temporarily, but a transplant had become urgent. Robert pulled me aside that evening. His manner was solicitous, but his eyes were calculating. "Leo, we need to discuss something important. About Mia." I adopted an expression of brotherly concern. "Is she going to be okay?" "She needs a kidney transplant. Without it, she won't survive." I waited, forcing him to say it explicitly. "The best chance for compatibility is a biological relative," he continued. "As her brother, you could save her life." There it was, the request that had killed me in my previous life. I appeared shocked, then thoughtful. "You want me to donate a kidney to Mia?" "It's a routine procedure," he assured me. "Very safe for the donor." I knew better. I had died on that table. I didn't immediately agree or refuse. Instead, I asked questions. Recovery time. Success rates. Alternatives. Playing the role of someone considering a serious decision. "I need to think about it," I said finally. Robert's jaw tightened momentarily before he forced a smile. "Of course. Take all the time you need." We both knew he meant hurry. That night I contacted Dr. Greenberg, a transplant specialist I'd researched extensively. I scheduled a private consultation, paying cash. "I'm considering donating a kidney to my sister," I explained during the appointment. "But I'm concerned about some symptoms I've been experiencing." I described fabricated episodes of flank pain, blood and urine, fatigue, symptoms suggesting kidney problems of my own. Dr. Greenberg ordered comprehensive tests. I knew they would show perfect kidney function, so I added my contingency plan. "There's something else," I said hesitantly. "My family doesn't know, but I've been taking certain supplements." I handed him a list that included medications known to cause false positives for kidney damage, medications I'd never actually taken, but which would create doubt about my suitability as a donor. Looking back, this medical sabotage was my insurance policy. If all else failed, medical contraindications would prevent the transplant. The Vernons grew increasingly desperate. Robert's company faced not just the preliminary inquiry now, but a full investigation. Sarah Chen published a second article, this one naming Vernon Industries directly. Elizabeth drank openly, no longer hiding bottles. Their arguments echoed through the mansion. "We'll lose everything," she screamed one night. "The company, our reputation, Mia." "I'm handling it," Robert insisted. "Leo will agree to the procedure. Wheeler and Blackwell will fall in line. The investigation will find nothing conclusive." I recorded every word, their desperation, their entitlement to my body, their confidence that I would comply. The family dinner that night was a masterpiece of tension. Robert attempted normalcy, discussing business news. Elizabeth drank wine instead of eating. I maintained my role as the dutiful son, still considering their request. Then Mia, home briefly from the hospital, slammed her fork down. "Just tell him to do it," she snapped at her parents. "It's not like he has a choice. He owes us." The awkward mask had slipped, the entitlement revealed. I feigned confusion. "Owes you? For what?" Elizabeth tried to smooth over the moment. "Mia's upset. She doesn't mean anything by it." But Mia wasn't finished. "They gave you everything, a home, a family. The least you can do is save my life." In that moment, I saw my opportunity. I stood abruptly, appearing distressed. "I need some air," I said, and left the dining room. The family facade had cracked wide open, their true nature exposed. The final phase of my plan could now begin. Elizabeth found me in the garden an hour after Mia's outburst. She carried 2 glasses of scotch, offering one as a peace offering. Her eyes were red from crying, her movements unsteady. "Mia didn't mean what she said," she began. "She's scared." I accepted the drink but remained silent. "You have to understand," Elizabeth continued, words slurring slightly. "We've been through so much with her, years of treatments, specialists, experimental protocols. Nothing worked." I sipped the scotch. "And then you found me." Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "It was like a miracle. The perfect match, our own son." How did you find me exactly? You said it was a hospital mix-up discovered recently. She looked away. It's complicated. Uncomplicated, I said softly. Looking back, I knew this moment would come. The alcohol, the stress, the fear. Elizabeth was ready to break. We knew about the mix-up years ago, she admitted finally. When Mia first got sick, genetic testing showed she wasn't biologically ours. The first truth. I pressed further. But you didn't look for me then? Elizabeth drained her glass. Robert didn't want to complicate things. Mia was responding to treatments. He said finding you would just disrupt our lives. What changed? Mia got worse. Nothing else worked. We needed compatible donor. She covered her mouth, realizing what she'd admitted. I feigned shock. So you only found me because Mia needs my kidney? No. Elizabeth grabbed my hand. We wanted you back. We've always wanted you back. The lie hung between us. I pulled my hand away. You're my son, she insisted desperately. Whatever the circumstances, you belong with us. I stood. I need time to think about all this. As I walked back to the house, I activated my phone's recording app. Elizabeth followed, increasingly frantic. Please, Leo. Mia won't survive without you. We've tried everything else. I turned to her. Everything? Something in my tone made her pause. Her expression shifted from desperation to fear. What do you mean? I found the files, Elizabeth. Project Revival. TransLife's experimental transplant program. The overseas clinic arrangements. Her face drained of color. You were in Robert's office? I know what you really want from me. Elizabeth collapsed onto a garden bench. Whatever denials she'd prepared died on her lips. You don't understand, she whispered. When you have a child, you'll do anything to save them. Even sacrifice another child? She looked up, tears streaming down her face. Mia isn't even ours, she confessed. Not biologically, not legally. I froze. This wasn't in my previous life's memories. What do you mean, not legally? Elizabeth's breakdown was complete. The family's darkest secret spilled out in a torrent of drunken confession. We couldn't have children. Fertility treatments failed. Adoption agencies rejected us because of Robert's previous legal issues. We were desperate. I sat beside her, recording everything. There was a broker. He arranged private adoptions for wealthy couples. No paperwork, no questions. Her voice dropped. We paid $500,000 for Mia. Never knew where she came from. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. Not just my death, but Mia's entire existence was built on corruption. Then her kidneys started failing. We tried everything, specialists worldwide. Nothing worked. Elizabeth gripped my arm. When genetic testing showed she wasn't ours, we tracked the hospital records, found out about the switch. Found out about me, I clarified. Elizabeth nodded miserably. The perfect donor. Our actual biological child. I didn't know it then, but this confession would become the cornerstone of the Vernon's destruction. Does Mia know? I asked. That she's not ours? No. That you're her donor? Yes. I stood again. I need to think about all this. Elizabeth grabbed my hand. Please don't tell Robert I told you. He'll be furious. Your secret is safe with me, I assured her, the only truth I'd offered all night. I returned to my room and transcribed the entire confession, added it to my evidence file. Then I made 2 calls. First to Sarah Chen. I have a new development for your investigation. Then to Dr. Greenberg for my test results. As expected, they showed perfect kidney function but concerning indicators from the supplements I claimed to be taking. These readings indicate potential nephrotoxicity, Dr. Greenberg explained. I can't recommend you as a donor until we resolve these issues. Perfect. Medical contraindication established. The next morning, Dr. Whitman called with my official compatibility results. Predictably, I was an ideal match for Mia. The Vernons' faces lit with hope when Robert took the call. That hope died when I shared Dr. Greenberg's assessment. "Who is this Dr. Greenberg?" Robert demanded. "Whitman is our family physician." "I wanted a second opinion," I explained innocently, "since this is major surgery." Robert's face darkened. "Whitman is the leading transplant specialist in the state. Greenberg says I've been taking supplements that have damaged my kidneys. He wants me to stop them for 6 months, then reassess." "6 months?" Elizabeth gasped. "Mia doesn't have 6 months." I appeared appropriately distressed. "I didn't know they were harmful. I was just trying to stay healthy." Robert's control slipped. "What supplements?" "Show me right now." I produced the list I'd given Dr. Greenberg. Robert scanned it, then made a call to Dr. Whitman, putting him on speaker. "These supplements," he barked. "Would they disqualify Leo as a donor?" Whitman hesitated. "If he's actually been taking these, yes, they can cause kidney inflammation. We'd need to wait for clearance. But can we proceed anyway? Work around it?" Whitman's ethical limits emerged. "Not without significant risk to both donor and recipient. It would be medically indefensible." Robert ended the call and glared at me. "Where did you get these supplements?" "Online," I said, vaguely. "Fitness forums recommended them." The lie was perfect because it was unverifiable. The supplements existed, but I'd never taken them. My kidneys were pristine. But now there was medical documentation suggesting otherwise. The Vernons' desperation escalated. Robert pulled strings to get Mia moved up the national transplant list, but her rare blood type and antibody profile made finding a match nearly impossible. Elizabeth drank constantly now. During one binge, she sought me out again. "I never wanted any of this," she slurred. "I just wanted a family." "You have a family," I reminded her. "Built on lies," she whispered. "All of it. Lies and money." I recorded this confession too. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen's investigation expanded. Her third article detailed Vernon Industries' connections to an international human trafficking network, specializing in medical facilitation services. The FBI became involved. Vernon Industries' stock plummeted. Robert grew desperate enough to attempt bribery. He approached Dr. Greenberg directly, offering a research grant in exchange for clearing me as a donor. Greenberg reported this to the Medical Ethics Board. Another nail in the Vernon coffin. Looking back, I couldn't have orchestrated a more perfect self-destruction if I'd tried. The family dinner that night was apocalyptic. Robert, half drunk, demanded I stop the supplements immediately. "You're killing your sister," he accused. "I've already stopped them," I assured him. "Dr. Greenberg says we need to wait for the damage to heal." "We don't have time to wait," Robert shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Elizabeth began sobbing. "It's over, Robert. Everything's falling apart." "Nothing is over," he insisted. "I built all this from nothing once. I can do it again." Mia, frail and yellowed with jaundice, finally spoke. "Just say it, Dad. You'll find another donor. Someone who won't ask questions like you did before." The room went silent. Robert stared at his daughter in horror. "What did you say?" Mia's laugh was bitter. "You think I don't know? About the others? I found the files years ago. 3 compatible donors who disappeared after operations. I'm not stupid. I hadn't known this in my previous life. The horror was greater than I'd imagined. Not just my death, but others before me." Elizabeth broke first. "Mia, those were medical records from clinical trials. They had names, Mom, ages, photos. They were people." Robert stood abruptly. "This conversation is over." "Like their lives were over," Mia challenged. "Did Leo know what he was signing up for when you found him?" Robert slapped her. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Elizabeth screamed. I sat motionless, recording everything. "I've sacrificed everything for you," Robert hissed at Mia. "Everything." Mia held her reddened cheek. "Including other people's children?" The family imploded before my eyes. Elizabeth collapsed in hysterics. Robert stormed out. Mia stared after him with hatred, and I, the catalyst of their destruction, watched it all with perfect clarity. When the FBI arrived the next morning, with a search warrant for Vernon Industries, I wasn't surprised. When they expanded that search to include the Vernon residence, I was prepared. An agent questioned me privately about my relationship with the family. I played the innocent son, recently reunited, slowly discovering disturbing truths. I found these, I said, producing copies of key documents. I wasn't sure what to do with them. The agent's eyes widened as she scanned the papers. How long have you had these? A few weeks, I admitted. I was afraid to come forward. Afraid of what? I glanced toward the main house where Robert was being questioned. Afraid of what they might do to me. My revenge was complete. The Vernons would face justice not just for what they planned to do to me, but for what they had already done to others. Looking back, I never expected such total victory. They had harvested me once. Now I had harvested everything from them. Robert Vernon was arrested 3 days after the FBI raid. The charges were numerous: fraud, conspiracy, human trafficking, medical ethics violations. Bail was denied due to flight risk. His empire crumbled in real time across news networks nationwide. I visited Mia in the hospital the day after her father's arrest. Her room was private but no longer luxurious. The family's assets were frozen. The premium healthcare package downgraded to standard care. She looked worse than ever. Skin yellow with jaundice, body swollen with retained fluid, eyes hollow with fear and something else. Resignation. I brought flowers, white lilies, funeral flowers, though she wouldn't know the symbolism. You're still here, she said, voice raspy from medication. I thought you'd have run by now. I arranged the lilies in a vase. Why would I run? This is my family. Her laugh turned into a cough. Family. Right. The family that would have cut you open to save me. I sat beside her bed. You knew about that all along. Of course I knew. It was never hidden from me. I studied her face. Did you know about the others? The ones before me? Something flickered in her eyes. I found out a few years ago. Dad's secret files. 3 donors, all compatible matches. All dead, I added. Mia looked away. I told myself they were willing volunteers, medical martyrs. And me? Would I have been a willing martyr? Looking back, I needed to hear her say it. Needed confirmation of what I already knew. Mia met my eyes directly. They would have told you it was routine. Safe. That you'd save my life and be back to normal in weeks. But that would have been a lie. She nodded slowly. The procedure they planned wasn't standard. It was experimental, designed to transfer more than just a kidney. My blood chilled. What do you mean? My disease is genetic. It attacks transplanted organs eventually. Dad found researchers developing a technique to transplant bone marrow alongside the kidney, to replace the recipient's immune system with the donors. I understood then. In my previous life, they hadn't just taken my kidney. They'd harvested my bone marrow too. A procedure with much higher donor mortality rates. The donor likely wouldn't survive, I said flatly. No. Mia didn't deny it, but I would. With your kidney and immune system, I'd be permanently cured. The casualness with which she discussed my death was breathtaking. You were okay with this? With killing me? Mia's expression hardened. I was desperate, in pain, dying by inches, while they promised me a cure. That doesn't justify murder, doesn't it? What would you do to survive? I knew exactly what I would do. I had done it, orchestrated the complete destruction of those who would have sacrificed me. Did you even feel guilty? I asked. Mia stared at the ceiling. I told myself it was fair. You got my life, the one that should have been mine. Private schools. Loving. Parents. Health. I got stuck with defective kidneys and endless hospitals. I grew up in an underfunded state orphanage, I reminded her, with neglect and occasional abuse. She had the decency to look ashamed. I needed to believe you deserved it, that you owed me. I leaned closer to her bed. And now? Now that your parents are exposed, your family destroyed, do you still think I owe you my life? Tears filled her eyes. I don't want to die, Leo. Neither did I whispered. Neither did I. I didn't tell her I remembered dying on an operating table while her parents watched. That knowledge remained, my private weapon. The FBI interviewed me extensively over the next week. I played my role perfectly, the shocked son, gradually uncovering his family's monstrous plans. We believe you were being groomed as an unwilling donor, Agent Torres explained. The evidence suggests previous victims in similar situations. I appeared appropriately horrified. They would have killed me? The procedure they were arranging at that overseas clinic has an 87% donor mortality rate. It's illegal in every developed nation. I shuddered, not entirely acting. What happens now? Your father will face trial. Your mother is cooperating in exchange for reduced charges. As for you and your sister, you're both victims in this. Victim was the right classification for Mia. Despite her knowledge, she had been raised in this environment of entitlement and corruption. But I was no victim. Not anymore. I visited Elizabeth in the temporary housing where she was confined during the investigation. House arrest in a 2-bedroom apartment. How the mighty had fallen. She was sober for the first time in weeks. Mandatory condition of her cooperation agreement. Leo, she whispered when I entered. You came. I set down the groceries I'd brought, playing the dutiful son until the very end. How are you holding up? I asked. Everything's gone, she said flatly. The house, the company, our reputation. And Mia's health? Elizabeth's face crumpled. She won't last without a transplant, no donor's match, no experimental treatments available. I'm sorry, I offered, not entirely lying. Mia's suffering wasn't my goal. Justice was. Elizabeth took my hand. I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe that. But you would have let them take my kidney, knowing the risks. She couldn't meet my eyes. I told myself it would work, that both my children would survive. That wasn't the plan, was it? Elizabeth began crying softly. Robert made all the medical decisions. I just wanted Mia to live, even if it meant sacrificing me. She had no answer. There was no justification possible. I didn't know it then, but this would be our last conversation. Elizabeth Vernon took her own life 2 days later. She left a note confessing everything. The illegal adoption, the previous donors, the plan for me. Her signature on all the authorizations. Her final act completed the destruction of the Vernon family. I attended her funeral alone. Robert remained in jail. Mia was too ill to leave the hospital. No friends or colleagues came to pay respects. The Vernon name was poison now. The minister spoke generic platitudes about a woman he'd never met. I watched the simple coffin lowered into the ground, feeling nothing but completion. 2 weeks later, Robert Vernon suffered a massive stroke in his prison cell. The stress, the downfall, the loss of his wife. His body betrayed him as he had betrayed others. He lingered in a prison hospital for 3 days before dying without regaining consciousness. I attended this funeral too. Another empty service. Another box in the ground. Only Mia remained. I visited her hospital room the day after her father's funeral. She looked barely alive. Machines sustained her. Monitors beeped in rhythmic counterpoint to her labored breathing. Her eyes opened when I approached. Recognition flickered. They're both gone, she whispered. Yes. And I'm next. I didn't contradict her. We both knew the truth. Did you do this? Her question surprised me. Did you destroy our family somehow? I considered lying. But what was the point now? I leaned close to her ear, close enough to smell the sickly sweet odor of her failing body. "I died for you once before," I whispered. "I remember everything. The operating room, the flat line, my last breath as they cut me open for you. I orchestrated your family's destruction from the moment I walked through your door." Her monitors beeped faster as her heart rate spiked. Her eyes widened in shock and something deeper. Recognition. On some level, she believed me. "That's not possible," she gasped. "Neither is being reborn with perfect memory of my death. Yet here we are." For a moment, fear dominated her expression. Then came understanding and surprisingly a kind of peace. "So this is justice," she whispered. "This is consequence," I corrected. Mia's laugh was hollow. "Well, you've won, completely. The great Vernon family reduced to hospital beds and graves." I said nothing. Words were unnecessary. "What will you do now?" she asked. "Now that we're all gone?" I hadn't thought beyond my revenge. The question caught me unprepared. "Live," I said finally. "Something your family tried to prevent twice." Mia nodded slightly. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just because I lost, but because it was wrong. What they planned. What I accepted. I didn't offer forgiveness. Some acts lie beyond absolution." She died 3 days later. Kidney failure, compounded by infection. I was listed as her next of kin. Another Vernon in the ground. 6 months later, I stood before 3 graves in an almost empty cemetery. The Vernon family plot. Elizabeth, Robert, Mia. 3 people who would have sacrificed me without hesitation. I placed a single white lily on each grave. Not in mourning, but in completion of my vow. My phone rang. The Vernon family lawyer. "Mr. Vernon," he said when I answered. "The probate court has finally released the estate. As the sole surviving heir, everything transfers to you." "Everything?" I clarified. "The house, remaining liquid, assets, insurance policies. After settlements and penalties, approximately $12 million. I looked down at the 3 graves. "I'll be in tomorrow to sign the paperwork." The lawyer paused. "Will you be keeping the Vernon name, sir?" Given the circumstances, a legal name change might be advisable. I considered this as rain began falling, gently on the graves. "No," I decided. "I am Leo Vernon. It's my name now. My legacy to rebuild." I walked away from the graves, from the dead family that would have killed me twice. They had harvested my life once. I had harvested everything from them. Not just revenge, but justice. Not just destruction, but reclamation. Everything that should have been mine from birth. Their name, their wealth, their future. My phone rang again. A representative from the charity where I'd donated most of the Vernon fortune. A hospital wing for ethical transplant research. Named, for the victims who came before me. "Yes, this is Leo Vernon," I answered calmly. "I'd like to proceed with the dedication ceremony." I left the cemetery without looking back. The graves would remain untended. The Vernon family remembered only for their crimes. While I, the son they tried to harvest, would build something new from the ashes of their destruction.